While PvPoke says that Trailblaze is not the way to go, I would say it is definitely the way to go for the current Fantasy Cup on the Perserker. And we're going to have a team here that is going to have a very ABB style line because you're going to have two water fairy type Pokemon in the back with the Tapu Fini as well as the Azumarill. If you don't have a Tapu Fini and you still want to play the line, maybe take a look at Primarina. This Pokemon looks also really cool to play in the current meta. Maybe use the Say-Swap of Azumarill with Play Rough and Hydro Pump instead and then go for the Primarina in the back, because I feel like this would also work out pretty well. But today we're gonna take a look mainly at the Perserker here. This Pokemon is actually really cool now, because it can boost your own attack. You already have a very decent attack stat anyway, and you're now going to have some access to coverage for like something like an Azumarill, which is really cool. But here we're gonna see already a close combat hitting the opponent's Hakomo, as they can catch the move onto the Azumarill, allowing us to get a ton of energy here as well. Brick Break does basically 0 damage, and we're going to be able to get up to an Ice Beam from this swap here, which is going to be nice. In comes the Magneton. We can still go for the Ice Beam here, which is going to get the knockout if they let this move go through, which they don't, and so we can still go for the Bubble Down, and so this game is already over as the opponent had already enough. Let's take a look at the next opponent. This team, by the way, was insanely good for me. I even had a 5-0 run later on, so you can see that as well. But here we're going to see as well the Say-Swap of the Morwell from the opponent. We can still go for a Surf with our Tapu Fini, which is going to be great as well. This should be able to maybe get the knockout. It does not get the knockout here, and they can still go for a charge move. I can still let this move go through. It is just going to be the Power Punch, and so we're going to have a great scenario here as we can realign our Pokemon. We know that they're going to have the Granbull in the lead, which we can still deal with our other Pokemon as well. It's going to be the Charm variant, which is kind of decent. We had like sometimes the Snarl variant before, which would be also kind of decent for us to play against. But here we're going to see the shield coming up from the opponent, which is going to be great. We have now a shield advantage. In comes the Tornadus, and they have to deal with our Azumarill. And with this game is basically over. Like, what are they going to try to do here? They can still go for the Overheat or the Dragon Pulse if they want to. But this is such a clear matchup for the Azumarill that there's not a lot that they can do about it. We can just go for a Play Rough. We don't have to shield anything here, and we're just going to be in such a great scenario that, yeah, we can just let this move go through as well. They're gonna go again for a Dragon Pulse, which is going to be double resisted, and so the next Play Rough is going to do a ton of damage already. I don't think it actually does knock them out, because it's just going to be a neutral hit, and yeah, they're going to still survive it. But like, what are they trying to do here? I can still go for the swap, and the Granbull is still gonna go for a charge move, which is so unnecessary, because this game is so clearly over already that, yeah, we can just go for the Trailblaze here, boost our attack, which does not matter because it's already gonna get the knockout. So, I actually had in the top team video as well a team with Perserker, where the Perserker has a Say-Swap, which also works out pretty well, but I actually liked it quite a bit in the lead as well, because you're just going to be able to have those very neutral matchups. And here we're gonna see one of them, for example the Azumarill. We can now go for the Trailblaze, and just one more Trailblaze will be enough to knock them out after the attack buff, which is really good for me. And yeah, Play Rough is usually the move that they go for, because they usually run Ice Beam plus Play Rough, and so we can easily win this first matchup. You have to be a little bit careful if they're on Hydro Pump. It's going to be a little bit of a trickier matchup, as the opponent is going to have their own Perserker. I stayed in maybe for a little bit too long, but I can now swap it into my Azumarill. Why did I swap into my Azumarill over the Tapu Fini? The reason is I think they have the team that I had in my top team video, which would have had now the Registeel in the back, and they do exactly have this team. So this might be a little bit of a trickier matchup now, because yeah, Tapu Fini is definitely the better Pokemon to go for against the Registeel, but I should have most likely swapped out into my Tapu Fini instead of staying in with my own Perserker in the beginning, because yeah, as you can see now, we're going to have the matchup of Tapu Fini against the Registeel, which is not really the best matchup ever. They're gonna get the attack drop immediately as well, which is kind of annoying, because now our Surf is not gonna do as much damage, but we're still going to have some kind of play here at least. Let's see what we can do. We can just go for another shield here and try to go for another charge move afterwards. The Zapkin is coming through. We're gonna get another attack drop onto us, but I can swap out after. This is going to be again a Trailblaze. It's going to be a very close matchup here. We're gonna see that I can still most likely reach the Ice Beam. Oh, it's going to be close. Sadly, I'm not going to be able to do so. So it does come down at like the Tapu Fini. If we can farm everything down, we can farm on the first Pokemon. Can we also farm on the Registeel? It's going to be insanely close, and we barely lose this game. kinda sad there. I think I could have won this game if I just swapped out into my Tapu Fini instead of staying in the lead. Here in comes now the LilyNiRiain Weezing, which I'm totally okay with. This is not an overheat, this is just the, what's called Brutal Swing, I think? Yeah, it's a Brutal Swing, which is totally okay for me, and I can just swap into my own Tapu Fini, which can easily take the move from the opponent as well. Brutal Swing is coming through, and now it's going to be a little bit tricky, because do they go for the overheat? Do they go for the play off? What do they have? They have the overheat, and so we can easily take the move. I can go for another charge move as well, and we can realign. And what we have now is we have a Perserker that is at half health, which is okay, yeah, it's fine, but we have a Perserker with a ton of energy, which is going to be insanely good because the coverage of this Pokemon is so great for the current meta. Having access to Trailblaze to boost your own attack for like those water-type Pokemon, having access to close combat for the Registeel, it's just really, really great to have. And as you can see, we can still go for a Surf, and we see that the opponent swaps out into the Flygon, which is a huge mistake because now we can align our Pokemon correctly. We don't really care too much what they're gonna go for here because we know that we can survive 2 Scorching Sands easily, maybe even 3, okay, most likely not, but easily surviving 2 of them, which is going to be great because the Ice Beam is going to get the shield from the opponent. We know that we have a ton of energy on our Perserker, and also we kind of get them closer and closer to close combat range, and close combat range is really good for a lot of Pokemon as well, because that close combat is just going to do so much neutral damage, and it's such a strong move, as you're going to see here as well. Gonna connect, gonna get the knockout, and so this is going to be a very easy game as the opponent decides to forfeit. Let's take a look at the next opponent. We're going to have the Escavalier in the lead. Horrific lead for us, and I decided to swap out into the Azumarill in this kind of case, because it's very unlikely that they're going to have a Registeel in the back, I would imagine, because what do they do then against the Tornadus? So it's very likely that they're going to have something like double Water Fairy in the back, which does make a lot of sense. So here we're going to see the opponent going to the Azumarill, which is totally okay for me, and I can still just go for my play route, which is fine. We are having unaligned switch clocks because the opponent went for a charge move prior, which is also okay for me. And also we're going to have now a ton of charge moves connecting here, but I could actually argue of going into my Perserker now and trying to farm them down or whatever, but I think I decided to stay in here and just play it out because I feel like this is going to be the better play to go for. I'm just going to let this move go through, not worth shielding at all. And I can now go into my Perserker, trying to get some extra energy, and maybe I should have stopped out here instead of going for this charge move. Of course, counter is going to be super effective, but I would expect that they're going to have their own Tapu Fini in the back, and if I just had a little bit more health now, I feel like this would have been a little bit more beneficial than what I actually did here, so I feel like this was a little bit of a mistake. I feel like you kind of always want to keep your Perserker a little bit more healthy than compared to the rest of the team. And now we have basically 2 shields still left, the opponent goes into their Azumarill, and I just have to hope at this point that we're gonna be able to win this game with our own Tapu Fini plus our Perserker, and it's going to be a little bit of a trickier one. I did not expect that they get that fast to the move as well, so I went for an unnecessary move here. I should have went for the Surf before. And they have the Slurpuff here in the back, which is really bad for us, because basically, if I went for the Surf before the opponent would have got to a move, I think I still had an easy chance of winning this game, because we still would have had like a shield advantage there, or like a shield left there, which would have been really great, but like this, they're going to be able to outspeed me, and I think this was a game that was winnable, but I just kind of messed it up there. Next opponent, most likely one of the worst possible Pokemon to encounter for this team, is going to be the Magnezone. Magnezone has access to Wild Charge, which is going to completely annihilate your backline, but also they're going to go straight for it, which is great, and I can overfarm by a little bit and then swap out into my Azumarill, which is going to be able to deal with a Flygon. Again, you don't need to use a shield here, and you don't want to use a shield in general, because basically, this is the matchup that you want to have anyway, especially with the Magnezone still lurking around. You kind of just want to get rid of the Flygon, you just kind of want to get rid of the shields of the opponent. This is just such a free matchup for you. That's going to be very, very great for you as well. We see the Flygon going for the Scorching Sands. They got already, I think, 1 attack drop, which doesn't really matter. They should let this move go through, and they didn't, which I found really interesting, but I definitely don't really mind this, because like this, I can just let this move go through as well. I think I have a move slot on the Perserker. I don't know if I want to swap into this Pokemon, or if I just go into my Tapu Fini, which is also going to be great, as they decide to swap into their own Azumarill. I'm going to decide to just wait until they go for their first charge move. It's going to be, of course, the Play Rough, and now I can swap out into my Perserker and go for the super effective Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to put them into a range where I can just go for another one afterwards, and that should knock them out as well. And we may be gonna see here a great sweep by the Perserker. We have +2 attack already. We can just go for the full farm down here. And as you're gonna see, the opponent is still going to have their Flygon coming in. And I thought I can just go for a shield and go for the full farm down. But I was wrong about this. They still got to another Dragonclaw. I didn't think that they had that much energy still left. But we will see now if our Tapu Fini is going to be enough to knock out the opponent's Magnezone. And I can tell you already it is, because Magnezone is very squishy and so we can easily win this game. Let's take a look at the next opponent. I guess actually you could even argue of going for Waterfall Primarina in this meta, but I think Charm is a little bit better, to be fair, also for like something like Azumarill. But here we're gonna see the lead of the Azumarill again. Maybe you kind of want to use a shield in the lead. It really depends on how the opponent gonna play it, if they go straight for it, if they gonna go like one over. Here I think they went perfectly for the Hydro Pump range, so I decided to use a shield, which was very smart because they're actually running Hydro Pump. And so I can go for the Trailblaze, and I'm not sure if he can just go for the Trailblaze and win this in the 2-shield scenario, but the opponent does not even let me know basically, because they just decide to not use a shield here, but they're going to have to use a shield now against my next close combat, and I kind of want to still keep my Perserker around just in case they're going to have the Registeel in the back. And I'm also going to decide to let this move go through. It's going to be the Earthquake, which is going to be fine, and I can still survive, I think, as what's called a Rock Slide here, so we're going to be in a decent spot. I decided to also let the next move go through from the opponent if they would have went for it, but they didn't, and now they're going to have the Registeel in the back. We still have our Perserker, which is really important, and we're also going to still have our Tapu Fini, which is really important, because Tapu Fini, again, is going to have a fairly neutral matchup here, actually, because of the neutral Water Gun, plus Surf doing a ton of damage, and they actually went for the Undercharge, which is kind of smart there with the Focus Blast, but again, they're going to have to waste the energy against the Azumarill, which is going to be amazing, because now I still have a shield left, I still have a Perserker left, I can just swap out here, and I can just go for the Trailblaze as well to just boost my attack, and with this, I will be able to outspeed the opponent in terms of damage, and so this is going to be a fairly easy game, and we can move on into the next one. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have the Mewtwo in the lead, Shadow Mewtwo as a shiny variant as well. I decided to swap out, and I didn't really see which fast move that was, and because I didn't see like the fire animation for Fire thing, I expected that the opponent would have what's called the Fairy Wind. Fairy Wind is also fairly decent in the current meta. Sadly, here the opponent is going to go for the Zap Cannon and also gets the debuff, which is kind of mad. And yeah, they're going to have a double steel lineup as well. Here, like double steel does make a little bit of sense because Mewtwo is usually very good against all the counter users or like all the kind of fighting type users. So like it does not really matter too much for that Pokemon. But as you're gonna see, they can just go for another Focus Blast, and this is a great play because now they can go for the full farm down. So I'm forced to go into my Perserker again, and I am going to be forced to use a shield here as well, as a Focus Blast would do just way too much damage, and the opponent is going to decide to stay in and go for another charge move, and I didn't think that they would get there that fast, so great play by them as well. They're basically playing this perfectly here. I can go for the full farm down. They are going to see the Azumarill coming in, and this is actually kinda great for me. And as you're gonna see, I can go for the Trailblaze, do a ton of damage, and I can go for another one, most likely force them to go for their own charge move as well. Let's see, or like yeah, they're actually gonna swap out here. Now we're gonna see that it's actually Fire Fang. We didn't see the fire animation prior, so I was super confused, and it took me a little bit to swap out because I expected Fairy Wind instead. And so the opponent is going to be able to still go for a charge move here, and yeah. I have to say, of course, as in every video, the battles are randomized in terms of the order they are in. So this was actually a battle they had in my first set, which was a little bit later on now in this video. Because at the end you're going to see me claim a 5-0 sets, and this is sadly going to be a barely loss there, but it's going to be fine. Let's take a look at the next opponent here. We're going to see the Azumarill in the lead, which is again a Pokemon that you kind of want to see, as we're going to have the Trailblaze in order to boost our own attack. We're just going to go straight for it. Basically, you're going to get there, I think, after 7 fast moves, which is perfect for you because it's the perfect timing as well. They're going to go up again to a Hydro Pump, but this time around I'm going to call that this is going to be a bait, and it was a bait as the opponent decides to swap out into the Lucario. I don't know what is better here. I think maybe Azumarill is better to go into against the Lucario compared to the Tapu Fini. I think this was a little bit of a mistake, but we can still go for the Surf, and if they want to go for a shield here, I can just go for the full farm down afterwards. I'm totally okay with that. They're gonna go for the shield, so I decided to just, yeah, go ahead and go for the full farm down. I think I could have actually went for the Surf instead, but yeah, didn't expect that I would get there before the opponent would get to another Shadow Ball. So at this point we have a ton of energy. I can go for the Moonblast and most likely force a shield from them. Let's see. They're going to actually let this move go through, and they're going to have the Registeel in the bag. So at this point I don't have shields. This is going to be a little bit tricky. But I also going to be able to go for a Surf, get this shield from the opponent, and I know that if they go for a charge move here, I should be able to outspeed them with my Perserker. Perserker has a little bit of an energy advantage, and so we can just go up and go for the CMP tie as well, which is going to be great. The close combat is coming through. It is not going to get the knockout. Oh, yeah, it actually did get the knockout, so that doesn't even matter. We can just go for the full farm and we can win this game as well. Final opponent for today, again, like those battles are randomized in the order they are in, like I did 2 sets with this team, was kinda great. This is going to be the final one, and it's going to be a Snarl variant. And against the Snarl variant, you want to swap out eventually, because Snarl is usually running Crunch plus the move Close Combat, and both those moves are resisted by Tapu Fini. And so this is a very decent matchup for us, also for the Azumarill as well. Like for the Azumarill, you're going to be able to resist those as well. So what I kinda want to try to do here is I want to try to realign, and this is super important for us. So you see me here using a shield because I know I can farm them down afterwards, and I know that basically the Grand Bow is completely out of this matchup because I cannot go for any really damaging move. And so we're gonna see the Perserker coming in here, which is totally okay for us as well. We can go for some Surf, the opponent decides to use a shield, and I can just go for the Close Combat because I don't care about the Grand Bow, like literally don't care about the Grand Bow at all. If they want to go for a charge move here, they can go for it. I would most likely, actually I think I shield this one because I thought I can just go for the Close Combat afterwards. No, actually, I actually did do this. And as you can see, they're running Foul Play on the Perserker, which is a gigantic mistake because at this point I know they have nothing to hit Azumarill, like literally nothing. And so we can just stay in here. They're gonna go for the Crunch most likely, or they're actually gonna go for the Close Combat, which is also totally fine. They can go for another one afterwards, but they will never get me into a range where they can knock me out with the Perserker because neither Close Combat or Foul Play is going to do enough damage. And so the player off is coming through doing a lot of damage even though it's resisted, and so we can easily win this game here. The opponent still tries their best, but yeah, again, like it's not going to work out. The Foul Play is not going to do enough damage, and we can now win this game. And again, yeah, I went 5-0 with this team as well here. As you can see, I can claim the set, but yeah, again, it was just kind of randomized the order. So definitely a very solid team. I would recommend you to try it out, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.